Matt Lenihan for Boxing Social in association with William Hill at Empire Fight Store. Delighted to be joined by boxers Ben Shalom. Ben, we're here in Walkden, Manchester Amateur Boxing Club. Boxer in partnership with Maverick Star Trust. A cracking day here for the kids. They get to meet some of the superstars from your stable, get them put through the paces. This is a good part of the job, is it right?
Yeah, no, it's refreshing. It reminds me why I even bothered getting into boxing. It's good. Obviously, I'm from here, so I know a lot of the people, and it's nice just to be around a bit more of a purer element of the sport. Especially, it's sometimes a professional sport and the amateur sport is so disconnected in many ways, but values and morals and things like that definitely. And so it's good to be around, and definitely something we're really passionate about, and just to try and make it a little bit more accessible. I mean, ticket prices and things like that, and people talk about free tickets or cheaper tickets. Definitely, how can people like this afford £100 tickets? You know, boxing tickets are fucking expensive, and even just to try and connect that, to make the amateur guys see their stars and realise it's real. I come in here and they're like, they think it's so a million miles away. They're like, well, it's the same sport, and sometimes it's so disconnected. We want to get some more amateur events on TV. We want to start connecting the dots and making people wanting to get started in boxing. There's so much participation in boxing now. Boxing participation is crazy, but hardly any of them connected to the professional sport and what's the professional sport.
You've always said your brand, Boxer, it's about building stars and people from the ground up, and this is the ground. This is Amateur Boxing Club. But even if they don't turn pro, how important is it for you and other boxing promoters to maybe put the pressure a bit on the government? Because if a kid's in here, they're not elsewhere, and maybe if they don't know what to do, boxing teaches discipline. It's important, isn't it?
It's the most important sport, in my opinion, because it's for the people that really need something, and really need discipline, really need a direction in life, and teaches you everything. You in a boxing gym, you can't lie to yourself, you can't pretend, you can't hide away. You meet everything head on, you meet your weaknesses head on, and I think they're special places, and the people that work in them are particularly special as well. And so it's really nice to be here. Obviously, it's great when it's in Manchester, and something I'm very passionate about. But hopefully, we can do more. Other promoters and everything, and actually put in some infrastructure and invest in it, which we're doing now, so that the whole sport can benefit and be more inclusive, more connected.
Talk about why we're here. It's Lawrence Okolie Fight Week. He's back on Sky. He's been waiting. I say he looks delighted to be back on Sky. He's going in there with a guy called David Light, who's maybe a bit unknown to some of us over here, but I've heard a lot of people in the industry saying, look, don't sleep on this guy. He's coming to fight. How excited are you for the main event Saturday? I'm
excited, but I'm nervous because Lawrence has been out of the ring for a year. He's had all the turbulence of what's gone on that we've talked about in the background, but the change of not only promoter, manager, trainer, that's a difficult thing to do. Doesn't matter how good Sugar Hill is, and Sugar Hill is very good. And I know Sugar very, very well, and I think it's gonna be a perfect combination. But things take time, and so to go straight into a genuine world title fight against a guy that is unbeaten, a ridiculous amateur pedigree, just beating Brandon Glanton away in Florida on Glanton's promoter's show. Yes, controversial, but he's fighting a guy that is powerful, volume puncher, and a guy that was putting on that fight and paying for that fight to get his shot at this man here. It's a tough fight, and it's one that he's going to have to be completely switched on by. We talk about change of styles and things like that. For me personally, you got here doing what you do. Don't change too much. Because this is a serious fight. We're at the top level of the sport here. We're fighting for world titles. This guy's here for a reason, and he's mandatory for a reason. It's not a fight that we would have necessarily chosen as a let's get back into the things, but it is what it is, and it's a tough test, and I'm excited, of course, but I also know there's a lot of pressure on Lawrence.
100%. Look, we don't want to overlook David Light, but you have a big plan for Lawrence. Lawrence is your guy. Ideally, say Lawrence produces a good performance, in your eyes, spectacular knockout, you'll be over the moon. What's next? What would you like to see him do? Because everyone always talks about Lawrence at heavyweight, but there's so much left for him to do at cruiserweight. What would you like to see him do after, and who are the names you want to see him in the mix with?
For me, it's unifications and rapport. That's all he wants. He wants a big fight, and then he wants to get up to heavyweight division. So next fight is either a unification or Richard rapport. And so
that's a big fight.
It's a big fight, and for me, it's the biggest fight in cruiserweight boxing. I think it's the biggest fight in the division worldwide. These guys are 2 stars. You've not, in Britain as well, to have that. It might be for a unification by then. It's a huge fight. It's one that Lawrence really wants. It's one that Richard wants. Richard was one of the guys pushing us to get Lawrence Okolie on the platform. That was his that was his motive from the start, and we now get to see it, and we're going to see it, whether it's unification next for Lawrence or straight in. That's what's next.
You've also got a bit of a narrative there. They had that moment on the Creed red carpet. There's a story, there's a build there, but Lawrence has also got former stablemate Chris Smith, who before maybe wouldn't have looked at it, but money talks, business talks. Could we potentially see that? It's a huge fight.
It is a huge fight. As you said, money talks, but CBS has got a big plan. We announced they'll fight at the stadium. We've got a press conference on Monday. The cruiserweight divisions are special for us. Obviously, having the 3 top British guys all wanting to fight for world titles, all wanting to fight each other, it's a good time for us, and we want to have almost like a tournament feel to this year. We want everyone to fight each other, people to know what's going on. We have to get through this mandatory, and then hopefully we've got a special announcement next week. But we've got to make sure that Lawrence doesn't overlook on Saturday night. I really think this is a serious fight.
Potential banana skin, but if Lawrence does what Lawrence does, we'll see. Great for the cruiserweights, right? Saw Jack Catterall in here earlier. Obviously, he wants to get back in the ring. He says, Progress a big fight. Where are we at with Jack? Because obviously, it must have been an absolute arseache, to put it in layman's terms for you, everything that's gone on with the unfortunate injury. Now you're going and fighting Teofimo, is Josh, which, that's been called, whichever. But what's the plan for Jack now? Because he's been out there in a long time. Could we see progress? What do you think?
It's difficult for Jack because he was meant to be on this card only because he was fighting Josh Taylor. Lawrence Okolie was never meant to headline in Manchester. Yes. Lawrence Okolie was on Taylor Catterall. We were then going to go March the 18th, and Sky was sensitive about going, and we wanted to be respectful. UFC's only here once a year, and we didn't clash with them. We were going to go to the Royal Albert Hall, so for us it was just about numbers, viewing figures. How many people can watch Lawrence in his first fight? That's why we arrived on this day. Jack Catterall, once the Josh Taylor fight went that way, what's the point? He was having a tick over for Josh. That's what it was. So for him, it's about the biggest fights, whether that's Taylor or Prograis. I think he can get it, and then we'll see what happens after that. But that's why he's not on this card. He's in a good position. He doesn't want to take over. He wants the biggest fights. I think he can get it.
Okay, something I want to talk to you about. We mentioned it. We touched on it in France a little bit in terms of Chris Eubank Jr. has activated his rematch clause for Liam Smith. Eddie Hearn on Talksport says he really likes that fight. He's not signed for the rematch, but he's activated the clause in his contract. So he's down to fight Liam Smith, right?
We don't have a contract with Eubank Jr. We have a contract with Wasserman. Wasserman were the ones that put the rematch clause in. That was them, because they said if we need that, they were the ones that activated it, not us. That's their contract. We only have one contract with Wasserman. They activated the rematch clause. That's all we know. We have to deliver our duty to them because for Liam to take that fight, they enforced it. So we're actually fairly easy in this situation. We're just delivering what we had to because we have a contract with Wasserman. But whether Eubank Jr. or Wasserman and what they've signed, that's a question for Wasserman. We've never had a deal with Eubank Jr.
So if Eubank Jr. Liam Smith rematch don't happen, options for Liam Smith. There's been talks about Billy Joe Saunders, there's been talks about Janabek. There's been lots of talks. What would you like to see Liam do? What's the next biggest fight if it isn't the Eubank Jr. rematch? What do you want to see?
Well, the only thing is Janabek we've been offered. Obviously, I've seen Billy Joe calling him out. There's fights for Liam Smith. There's big fights, Kell Brook. But because we had a rematch commitment, that's what it is. That's where we're currently at. So it's difficult for me to comment because he talks about Eubank not signing. I have a contract with Wasserman, so I think it's a question for Wasserman.
Are you a bit in limbo then? Because it's like you don't want to start making headway with stuff for Liam, because if you do that and he goes, oh no, Chris is fighting, it's like, okay, wasted a lot of time here. Are you sort of in the middle of waiting to see for Chris to do anything, or?
Not really, to be honest. Up until Eddie's interview yesterday, we were told by Wasserman the rematch is happening. So I don't, it's boxing. Yeah. It is what it is, it is what it is.
Got to ask you, Simon Joy and Eddie obviously there. I know this is nothing to do with you, but I want to get your opinion as a promoter. And you spoke openly about the drug situation with Conor. Did we learn anything new from that interview? Anything that you were like, oh, I didn't know that, or what? No. Surprised that we're talking about Conor fighting with everything that's gone on. I think Eddie did allude to, I have to say, he would have liked to have seen the documents go to the board. In fairness to him, that's what he has said. So, is the right thing to do for that to happen in your opinion? Not saying it is or it isn't. In your opinion, to him to show the documents to the board, get cleared before then going and fighting wherever in the world, let alone the UK.
Yeah, very surprised. Don't think it shows the sport in a great light. It is what it is. I mean, I've spoken on it so many times. Didn't learn anything new. Yeah. It might be entertaining, and there might be a lot of BS and random stuff being said and this and that, but I didn't watch the full hour and a half interview, but I think people, it's weird. I do find it strange that people don't take taking drugs in the sport seriously. I do find that very strange and actually worrying, and it seems like certain fans and certain people just don't give a shit, which is scary for fighters like this and girls and boys wanting to get into the sport. Yeah. No wonder the professional sport is so distant from the amateur sport, because it's poles apart in terms of how it operates and how it behaves.
Another big fight in boxing, obviously I've got to ask you, Fury Usyk, just your opinion on it as a boxing man, which you are. How disappointing, how much of a letdown will it be if this fight doesn't happen for Undisputed?
Yeah, devastating. I thought it was going to be the easiest fight to make. When the big fights don't happen, that hurts the sport, because that's the old age thing and it puts broadcasters off and it puts fans off, because even the casuals are just like, well, why would we bother? That's the only fights we care about, a lot of these, and that's what keeps the interest, that's what keeps the money in the sport. This is a unification of the marketing division, and it's not happened. I still hope it happens, because one day it's on, one day it's off, but I hope it happens. But if the fights like this don't happen at the right time, then the sport's in danger, and there has to be something that they look at, and it's a long-term thing around how to stop the big fights not happening. Like the business is, I've said it before, but the business is dictating the sport. This is a sport. What other fucking sport do you have where the best aren't fighting the best at the right time? It's just, that's what sport is. So this isn't a sport if that's happening. Money getting in the way, politics, this, whatever it is, it's sad. And I'm not blaming anyone, it's just sad, because we all want the sport to grow. And there's so many big fights to make. The territorial nature of it all is what kills it. People feel like they're going to lose out or this or that. Anyway, it's sad.
I mean, last year when you obviously made that sort of breakthrough year, you managed to put on the likes of a Khan Brook. We've been calling for it for 10 plus years. Savannah Marshall, Clarissa Shields, them landmark fights. We're seeing that now with networks working together, Javante, Ryan Garcia, but we need to see more of it, don't we? Because, like I said, the Spencers and the Crawfords of the world, we need to start seeing these happen, and rather than wait until they're both 38 and gone.
100%, and that's why, when it became so much about Hearn and Shalom and Matchroom and DAZN and then Sky, all that noise, and look, we contributed to it because Boatsi's talking about how he wants to found a bigger platform. But all that stuff, I actually get on with everyone. We have an okay relationship, we have communication lines, we have to work together to make the big fights. And the sport won't go anywhere. It's so fragmented right now. Yeah. If people are territorial, you can forget it. These guys, look, all the networks are powerful. All the networks have money. All the networks can satisfy their own fighters. Yeah. But unless everyone works together, then the fights won't happen. And so it's difficult because we're all competitive and we're all something like, I want to, But ultimately, unless we can work together, everyone's going to lose. Everyone is going to lose.
We spoke about this a bit before. Obviously, last time you had Joseph Parker go fight on a Frank Warren show, you sat on the top table with Frank Warren. We rarely see any of that, and obviously you're branching into these other territories now. We saw it with Catterall and in Paris the other week. You're going to Poland. Is there any other sort of territories you want to jump into to work with different networks, not just Europe but further afield?
Yeah, we're looking at the US. We're looking at other things. We want to show that we will work with everyone. We're trying to. We're in a world where a lot of people are trying to bring us down and ruin fights and this and that. We have to deal with it. And people say, "Oh, don't be so naive. It's boxing, fine, but it's fucking shit for the sport." Yeah. And so all we can do is try and work with the promoters that we can, do our thing in terms of putting on the best fights we can, developing the best talent we can. And it starts from last year, and now we're working with Canal Plus in France, and we had a great success there last week.
Good card.
Good card. We're going to Poland with Babic, and we get to bring Okolie over there, TKV, Dubois, and you'll see that now every month. We are trying to put things in place for long term, so that we can make fights easier, make fights quicker, and open the sport up and stop being, again, it's even in the psyche, like Tony Yoka's like David Beckham in France, but when have we ever seen him over here? The sport has got such blinkers on that everyone's just watching what they're watching, and that's why I do like the zone, in the sense you get to see fights from everywhere, but promoters are everywhere and they have to work together, and it's just trying to change that culture. Not everyone's going to do it with us. We're not naive, but we're trying to make sure that we've got those relationships all over the world.
Well, hopefully in the next year or so we see it a little bit more often and everyone works together and we can all see the big fights. Look, Ben, always appreciate talking to you. We'll catch up now, probably fight nights. We won't have to do it tomorrow unless something big happens overnight. And yeah, looking forward to a great night with Lawrence Okolie.
Thank you, mate. Cheers, mate.